Kinstrife is the new RPG inspired by Mount and Blade that is currently in development. It's a pretty exciting one for Mount and Blade fans. These are two developers that were deep into the Mount and Blade scene. They even met on the Mount and Blade forums. Recently, Kinstrife was picked up by a publisher as well. Hooded Horse, they're this publisher known for games like Against the Storm, Old World, Bannerlords, and Nine Kings, so they were clearly able to show off something convincing enough to get backed. As you can see, this game has physics-based combat, which in these early stages looks a bit like the characters flailing around like a crazy person. But what makes this so great is that it simulates directly the actions that you'll take. Damage is taken based on how you actually strike the enemy. That lets you do a wide variety of things, including calculating momentum and using that to calculate damage. It's part of why Mount and Blade is so unique. It's such a fun experience, and they're bringing that over here. They kind of want to hit on all the big points that people want. You have all sorts of loot that you can acquire to kit yourself out. You can build up your own crew. It seems like they're trying to give you a lot of different options as well. In the description, it says you can become a feared mercenary, chivalrous knight, or a diplomatic peacemaker. So although a lot of the game will be focused on the combat, what you can do on the field, it seems like there'll be other choices that you make outside of that, including some sort of diplomacy. But they actually have a roadmap for the game available publicly, so let's go over that so we can really learn about what they plan to offer in the game. Okay, so I noticed partway through making this video that they actually just have the entire roadmap available, so we can actually see what the features are and what features they are not planning on doing. We don't have to really guess, so let's take a look at what they aren't going to do. So looks like they're not going to be having any sort of online multiplayer. Sad for some people, not too big of a deal for me. It has to do with the physics-based melee mechanics. It's difficult, to do all the networking for that. There could be some sort of future thing, apparently, where they do co-op, but for right now, it's not something they're going to do. This isn't a survival game or a crafting game, so anyone that was looking for this to be some sort of survival crafting game, it's just not that. So that is something that they're not going to do. They're not going to be doing any sort of castle building, so a little bit sad on that one. That's something that you can kind of do in Mount and Blade, and something that is a lot of fun, but they're trying to make it this wandering knight experience apparently, and that would be a whole different thing to do. So they're just not going to focus on that. They're not doing these sort of fantastical mythical beings, dragons, zombies, orcs, or anything like that. It's not going to be fantasy or magic. I'm sure there'll be mods for that at some point, right? What they are doing is they're going to have the combat AI. Obviously, that's something they're going to do. Diplomacy and relations. So you need to position yourself wisely in the political puzzle of the region. Get on the good side of the right people, and you'll have a much easier time to stay afloat. So this is kind of like working your way into the political systems and doing things like jobs and trading, and obviously you're going to be traveling a lot, so there's going to be stories and events, so that is also something that they're going to be doing. There's a traits and attribute system, so each character will have their own special traits and attributes. Characters can be tall, they can have not so great eyesight, but they can have different traits and that sort of thing. There's stories and events. There's going to be like actual characters that have their own stories and stuff like that. And they're creating the system for creating and experiencing stories. That's something I'm really interested in. A lot of the fun that I have is in kind of creating the story for my own character and seeing what happens. And that's just something that naturally happens in games like Mount and Blade. You'll end up fighting one group and then joining them later and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So it looks like they're just trying to really dive into that. Character creation, there's going to be the ability to change your appearance, background, upbringing. That's tied to their traits and attribute system as well. There's mounted combat, so knights on horseback. There's definitely going to be that. So that is cool. Crouched, I think it's couched lances, knocking raiders to the ground, cavalry charges, crashing into lines of infantry, and all that good stuff. Tactics. So there's going to be actual tactics. I'm sure they'll have a system where you're able to choose different tactics for your army or what have you. Rather than trying to micromanage in the heat of battle, you'll need to come up with successful formations and battle plans before charging in. Okay, interesting. So, I think in Mount & Blade you're able to do that on the fly in the battles. So maybe this is more of doing something beforehand in terms of tactics. Kind of interesting. We'll see how that works. Afflictions and wounded based health system. So instead of a hit point based system, the health system will be based on wounds, injuries, and illness. A single sword strike may result in grievous injuries, ending the fight, and result in lasting complications. Oh, cool. So there's going to be a whole system for that. Major consequences for fighting gameplay. Actual battles will be scary. You can lose a valued member of your retinue, permanently injure your player character, or even die. So yeah, that sounds really cool. You could have a whole thing where your character loses their arm, maybe. Something like that. Be the one-armed hero. Tournaments were not only an excellent way of making a name, they could be rather lucrative. Yeah, so that is one way that you could really build up your cash flow in the start of Mount & Blade, is going to different tournaments and getting the loot and stuff through that. There's going to be a campaign, but they're not talking about that too much yet. Basic modding support. So that's important. That's something we're definitely looking for, is to see what sort of modding scene this game is going to have. That's always been a big thing in Mount & Blade, and we definitely want that in this, because then you can make all sorts of crazy stuff. Of course, someone's going to make the Game of Thrones mod almost immediately within the first 3 days. But yeah, so that's kind of a overview of everything that they're doing here. It looks really cool so far. So those are sort of all the features that they're talking about doing, features that they won't do and stuff like that. And after seeing a lot of the features that this game has, it's funny because whenever you see these sorts of games come up, they tend to get a lot of attention eventually, especially if they're done in a way that is a lot of fun. Half Sword is a good example of that, though it just went some sort of release that has people a bit unhappy. The other example of this in a completely different perspective is Exanima. There's something about this type of physics-based combat that feels different and really pulls you into the experience, yet there aren't really that many games that play like it. I did an entire list on games like Mount & Blade and Kenshi, and I wasn't able to find that many games that were even attempting something similar to Mount & Blade. Yet, a month or so later, here we are with Kinstrife, and it's looking really interesting. There really isn't that much footage of the game yet, so I've had to kind of delve into their YouTube channel's shorts to pull more footage of it. That might look a bit janky, but everything I've seen of this game so far has really made me think that these guys get it. They seem to understand where the fun is, and that's the most important thing. These games are all about giving you a sandbox of tools to explore with, create your own stories, and that's what I like so much about these sorts of games. Kinstrife is looking very exciting so far. I'm hoping it'll end up being a great experience. It could be a bit before we get to play the full game, but they have talked about doing various playtests. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check out their website, get on email lists and that sort of thing. Maybe join their Discord. They have more information about that, the playtests and FAQs and stuff like that there. For now, you can wishlist the game on Steam, and it will be releasing at some point in the future. No clear date just yet. For more videos about RPGs of all kinds, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.